News Talk 1070 KHMO presents On the Mark with Mark Hespin. News Talk 1070 KHMO presents On the Mark with Mark Hespin. On the Mark is powered by Cunis Country Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area at 221 North 36th Street, Quincy. Faith, family, and giving back. That's Cunis Country. And now, here's Mark Hespin.
Good morning, Tri-State 10, wherever you may be listening on the News Talk 1070 KHMO app. This is On the Mark. I am Mark Hespin, brought to you by Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. You got to ask them about this lifetime powertrain warranty, the no-fear warranty on new and used vehicles. Tell them Mark sent you. Welcome on into episode 225 of On the Mark here on this chilly Saturday, February 24th, compared to what we've had here the past couple of days in the tri-states. And as always, if you are listening on the terrestrial radio, amazing. Shout out to the people still listening to the radio. If you are listening on the KHMO app, wherever you may be listening, welcome. You can always follow along the show on Facebook. Just search On the Mark KHMO on Facebook. And then follow me on all social media at Mark Hespin. That's Twitter/X, Instagram, and YouTube. We got a big YouTube channel now. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Mark Hespin, MarkHespen. I post weekly videos. This week's one was detailing more about what the Chicago Bears need to do with the number one overall pick. So check that on out. Today on the show, we got to talk a ton of college basketball. Caitlin Clark, she gets her a bite at the apple against the Illini this weekend. The MLB, my first kind of dabble into an MLB preview for this year, thanks to the MLB Network's top 100 players. I think it certainly gives us a lot of juicy information to dive into. A little NBA talk at the end of the show, but I want to start the show before I jump into Hespin headline number one. Shout out to Quincy Senior High School boys basketball, the 4A regional champs with a 49-42 win yesterday over O'Fallon. The 30-3 Blue Devils, they keep the dream alive. They'll play Tuesday, I believe, against Belleville, or something like that. Tuesday night, they stay alive. Big win, regional champs. Congrats to QHS. Go Blue Devils. The Duke Blue Devils are playing today. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. Let's jump into it. Episode 225 On the Mark, here broadcasting live from our KHMO studios in Quincy. And we're going to start, of course, with some football because we had breaking news in the NFL last night. It is franchise tag season.
Hespin's headlines On the Mark.
Hespin headline number one, it is franchise tag time in the NFL. And what this means is we are in this window from Tuesday until March 5th where teams have to use or not use the franchise tag. They can also use the transition tag, which was kind of a confusing thing. But after last year, I think most people now kind of have it in their vocabulary because it was used on Lamar Jackson. The difference between the franchise tag and the transitional tag is the transitional tag says, hey, we want you, but if you want to go negotiate with other teams, that's fine. Put a deal together, and we'll decide then to either match that deal or not. The franchise tag is just basically, listen, we can't get a deal done now, or we don't necessarily want to get a deal done long-term, but you're really important to us going in next year, so we're going to give you a nice big chunk of guaranteed money and keep you for a year. A lot of players are anti the franchise tag because they want the long-year deal. They want the security of having a longer contract, but it is a big payday immediately, all guaranteed. And so the news breaks last night that T. Higgins, the Bengals wide receiver, got his franchise tag, and I'll get to that in a minute. What's really important to remember with the franchise tag and everything that's going on here as teams are starting to negotiate these deals to try to get long-term deals done is the cap, the salary cap in the NFL. And if you didn't see it yesterday, it's official. The salary cap for the 2024 NFL season is the highest it's ever been, a massive $30 million increase from last year to this year. The salary cap last year, we just closed the year at the end of the Super Bowl, was $224 million. The salary cap for next year, $255 million. The salary cap has grown $100 million since 2016. So for all of those teams who are paying their quarterback big money and those big contracts, this is a huge relief. For all the teams like the Saints who are in cap, you know what? This is a huge relief, the growth of the franchise tag. And it's going to force teams to spend even more money. It's going to force them to spend. You got to hit the base of the franchise tag. There is going to be a minimum salary that you have to hit, which will probably be about what the franchise, what the salary cap was last year. I mean, this is huge increase, a monumental increase. It just goes to show you the growth of football. To put that in perspective, when Emmitt Smith and the Dallas Cowboys were winning their Super Bowls, and they were the stars of the league, the stars of the NFL in the early 90s, the salary cap in 1994 was $34 million for the whole roster. 30 years later in 2024, $255 million. It's a lot of money. Lot of money. And if you have, your big-time quarterback, it's eating up a huge chunk of that. But there's no excuses for a lot of teams to not be able to maneuver and work within this salary cap. It's a giant number. It's a massive number. And it means that some of these guys who I'm about to talk about are going to get paid. So let's dive into it, the franchise tag. So when I think about the franchise tag and if a team should or shouldn't use the franchise tag, first and foremost, I look at, is that player really necessary and important for this team's success in the immediate future, a.k.a. next year? I also think about, is it a player that you've kind of homegrown, you want to make sure you keep, and you'd be really bummed to watch them as they're entering their prime or in their prime go off and dominate with another team for a couple years, and you go to have to try to find their replacement and struggle to ever find a guy like that. And so those are the two really keys I think about if your team should or shouldn't use a franchise tag. That kind of homegrown talent who it's going to be crucial for the growth over the next couple of years. Or, hey, you're in a win now mode, and I don't care what it takes. You've got to find a way to keep that person, because that person's going to be crucial to your playoff run this year, which could lead to a Super Bowl run, an AFC or NFC championship run. And so I'm going to give you my top 5 must tags, meaning I would tag these players if you could not get a deal done. I'd get a long-term deal done with all these guys, but if you couldn't get a deal done, you got to tag them. You got to keep them. You cannot let these guys walk out of the building. Now, T. Higgins was going to be one of those guys, but the Cincinnati Bengals have already announced they're going to franchise tag T. Higgins. I think this makes sense. T. Higgins, a very good wide receiver. He's a wide receiver 1 on most teams because he is with Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals. That is the best wide receiver core 1-2 punch in the NFL, Chase and Higgins, when they're both healthy with Joe Burrow. And I think tagging Higgins makes sense in the sense that, listen, we're going to try to get a long-term deal done here, but we're not going to let you walk away. You are going to be a part of our franchise next year. And the Bengals are in a very unique spot. As I mentioned, they're one of the very few teams that actually has proven to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in a big game that's not Tom Brady. And so it makes sense that T. Higgins would have been top 2 on this list for me, but they've already announced that they're going to get T. Higgins definitely franchise tagged, if not signed a long-term deal. And so we can move off of Higgins. So here we go. Here are my top 5 players that absolutely need to either A, get a long-term deal done, or they must get tagged by their franchise. Coming number 5, Josh Allen for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville's defense took a step back last year, and they can't afford to take another step back. You now have a real competitor in your division with the Houston Texans in the AFC South. You missed the playoffs after making it last year. The defense has to improve to help out that offense of Trevor Lawrence. Josh Allen is one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. He's a fantastic edge rusher. Getting him back in Jacksonville, again, homegrown talent, and your window to win is now. You can't let him walk. I'd love to see the Jags get a long-term deal with him, but if you can't, you got to put the franchise tag on Josh Allen. You're in a win-now mode, and he's a homegrown talent. He fits both of those categories for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You got to get it done. Number 4, Brian Burns of Carolina. Now, Carolina's window is far from open. It's still very shut. They're in a rebuild. But Brian Burns fits very much into the homegrown talent. And at some point in time, if you want to start turning the arrow around, if you're the Carolina Panthers, you just have to keep your good players. You gave up DJ Moore, okay? You can't afford to give up any more good players. You got to keep good players. You're not paying your quarterback anything. You can afford to pay your star defensive lineman a bunch. So either get him the long-term deal or franchise tag him. Now, there's a lot of teams that would love Brian Burns because there's a lot of teams in a win-now mode or the arrow's already pointed up mode who feel like they're a Brian Burns away from, hey, making that next jump, right? And so I feel like if you're Carolina, that's also a great sign that you got to keep him. You got to find a way. And listen, part of this, too, is your salary cap is going up. You have to hit the floor, and you got to sell some tickets. You got to give your franchise and your fan base some hope. There's not a lot of hope in Carolina, but getting a deal done with Brian Burns, and if not, at least just keeping him and franchise tagging him, it helps, at least sell some tickets, sell some jerseys, and keep some momentum in your franchise. So Brian Burns, number 4 candidate. You got to stay in Carolina. Number 3, Jalen Johnson, the Chicago Bears. I'll say this as a Bears fan, I want to see Jalen Johnson in Chicago. You have got a defense that started playing really well at the end of the year, and he was a huge part of that. He is a top 5 corner in the NFL. He is a crucial homegrown talent, and the arrow is pointing up. If you're the Chicago Bears, you can't let a homegrown great talent entering their prime. He is now entering his prime. For the next 4 years, he should be a top 5 corner in the NFL if he stays healthy. Now, I know it sucks to pay corners a lot of money. All it takes is one tweak of a hamstring, and they miss 3 weeks. I know. But if you have an elite corner like a Jalen Johnson, shout out John Cozen, NIU, wearing the hoodie today. We're talking college basketball later. If you are an elite corner, you got to get paid, and they are crucial right now for where the Bears are at. Homegrown talent, trying to keep the arrow pointed in the right direction no matter where you go with the quarterback position. The Bears have the 3rd most salary cap space, plus now the cap just grew. No excuses not to get Jalen Johnson paid. Pay him big. You're not going to be paying your quarterback anything no matter which direction you go with the quarterback. So now is the time to spend money on the star defensive players. I'd rather spend money on a guy like Jalen Johnson I know who's homegrown as opposed to blowing a bunch of money in free agency on an unknown. Jalen Johnson is absolutely a top 3 candidate. If you can't get the deal done, put the tag on him and keep working towards getting a deal done. Jalen Johnson has to remain a Chicago Bear. Number 2, this one might surprise people, but again, I think it makes a ton of sense. Michael Pittman Jr. for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Michael Pittman Jr. has dealt with some injuries, but he is a very good wide receiver. Is he a true number 1? He's borderline, kind of like T. Higgins. On a really good wide receiver staff, he would be an elite number 2, but he's a very good number 1, a solid number 1. He's not a top 10 wide receiver. So I would struggle to pay Michael Pittman Jr. giant big money, but that's why he's a perfect franchise tag option. He's homegrown. He didn't even really get to play with your young quarterback last year. So franchise tag him. Try to maybe work on a long-term deal, but more importantly, give him the tag so he's there next year and you can see his growth with Anthony Richardson. Then at the end of the year, if him and Anthony Richardson are healthy all year together and they have a great year, that's when you get Michael Pittman Jr. a nice long contract. You know that him and your quarterback work, and you grow your offense from there. You already have Jonathan Taylor locked up long term. I'm not in a rush to give Michael Pittman Jr. a huge contract, but I'm definitely keeping him in the building. You have a young quarterback who barely played last year, coming off a shoulder surgery. You've got to fill weapons around him. Letting Michael Pittman walk would not be good if you're the Indianapolis Colts. And number one, I think this is a no-brainer. Homegrown talent, absolutely win-now mode. He just had a giant breakout season. You try to get a nice long-term deal done, but if not, you don't let him walk out of the building. Justin Madubuike, the Baltimore defensive lineman, led the league in sacks, an elite pass rusher, has really shown you as well the long-term growth in your program. He's a guy that showed up and year after year, by year 4, has just gotten better. That's the type of guy you want to give a long-term contract to, but you definitely cannot let walk out of the building. You cannot let him walk out of the building. It's franchise tag season. The salary cap has exploded in the NFL. Those are the 5 guys that I'd be really, really frustrated if I was a fan of my teams, that at the start of next year, they're not still wearing my team's jersey. And that's what the franchise tag is all about, right? Now, if a guy gets pissed, he doesn't want the franchise tag, he's going to sit out in camp, it's up to your GM, your coach, and your culture to find a way to convince him to at least come in, play, start the season. I don't care if any of those guys miss camp. They can miss some time at camp. Those are stars. Those are guys who know your system. Michael Pittman Jr., you want him in camp because you got to get the development with your young quarterback in Richardson. But overall, if any of those guys are playing in a different jersey next year, it's a miss by the front office of those teams. Now, there are a couple honorable mentions I would add to this. Number one would be Chase Young with the 49ers. You gave up a pick to get him, so letting him walk would feel just gross. I don't want to give Chase Young a long-term deal, not at all. But giving him a franchise tag just to say, hey, let's run it back another year, or if you can get him to a 1-year deal. But letting Chase Young walk feels weird. So giving him a franchise tag could make sense just to keep him. I would say the running backs, Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs, again, you feel like it makes sense that the Raiders and the Giants would want those 2 guys in the program. They're not nearly as important as the other guys I've mentioned so far, and their teams are just in different spaces than a lot of the other teams I mentioned. And then finally, people are saying, Chiefs fans, I know you're listening this morning, going, wait a minute, what about Chris Jones? Because they did tag Chris Jones last year, I don't think the Chiefs are going to tag Chris Jones for $32+ million. But I firmly believe Chris Jones and the Chiefs now will get a deal done. They'll get a deal done. He's too important to not get a deal done. So there you go. The salary cap has exploded, and it is franchise tag season. T. Higgins already coming back to the Bengals. I also like that move. If you're the Bengals, you tag him early. I'm surprised that we haven't got more tags, because I think it allows the teams to start just having those conversations with the player. And you got to, if you're a GM, you got to sell the franchise tag to them as, we can't lose you. Like you are so important to us. We love you. We love you. Shower him with compliments. Not like, we don't want to give you a long-term deal, but play with us next year. Shower him with those compliments and then say, hey, we're going to try our best to work a long-term deal here, but you are going to be wearing this uniform next year because you're that important to us. And so Madubuike, Jalen Johnson, Michael Pittman Jr., Brian Burns, Josh Allen, they all better be wearing the same uniform they wore last year, next year, or else it's some big-time misses from GMs across the league. You're listening on The Mark, News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area. When we come back, we're talking baseball, Ray, baseball. Yeah, I know I'm wearing my NIU Go Huskies college hoodie, but we got to talk baseball. The MLB network came out with their top 100. Last year, we had a lot of fun with this. This year, I think the top 100 that the MLB network laid out is really giving us, for the people like me who are kind of the casual baseball fans, a really great kind of baseline to start digging into the MLB season. I think there's some interesting storylines you could take from it. We'll dive into that next. We're live, we're local on America's Home Talk News 1070 KHMO. It's On the Mark.
1070 KHMO.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. We are brought to you by Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. You got to ask them about that lifetime powertrain, no fear warranty on new and used vehicles. They have over 3,000 new and used vehicles to choose from. And what's so cool about Cunis Honda Hyundai is you're really buying from Cunis. Now, listen, if you want a brand new Honda or Hyundai because you love those brands, obviously, they're the place to go. But listen to this. The Cunis network of dealers. Cunis owns Dodge, Ram, Chrysler, Jeep, Ford, Chevy, GMC. If you're looking, you want a brand new Silverado, go to Cunis Honda Hyundai. I'm telling you. Go to Cunis Honda Hyundai here in Quincy. Grab a sales rep and be like, I want to buy a brand new Chevy Silverado. Watch what they can do for you. It's incredible. Cunis Honda Hyundai, you're buying into the network of dealers, and it is special. It's what I did with Cunis Honda Hyundai. I got my truck from Cunis Honda Hyundai because they had it at another location, and they brought it on down for me. Test drove it the next day. Walked out. I was spending less money on a brand new truck than I was on my previous car payment. They are incredible. Cunis Honda Hyundai, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. Tell them Mark sent you. All right. The MLB Network has released their top 100 players, so let's dig into it. Hespin headline number 2.
Hespin's headlines on the mark.
I love this list. If you are a casual baseball fan like me, I'm wearing my Cubs hat today. Go Cubs, go. One thing it's really tough with the baseball season is it's during the summer. You're finally trying to go out and spend time with your kids. You're staying out. You're doing other things. You're going to the beach. You're going on vacation. You're not as dialed in. There's games happening at noon. There's games happening at 7 every day of the week, and it's hard to keep it all in place. You watch as much of your team as you can, but as far as the MLB as a whole, it's harder to have a grasp on things. And what this list does, it's a great starting point for people like me, and I know a lot of my listeners here. It's great for the diehards because the seam heads, they just pick this list apart. But for what I look at this list, I start to dig into it and really see some storylines, right? And some interesting things to think about as we're heading into the baseball season. So let me kind of overall view from what the top 100 gives you. Let's look at the top 10 specifically of the MLB top 100. Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Yankees. The Dodgers and the Yankees combined have 6 of the top 10 players on the MLB top 100. 3 Dodgers, 3 Yankees. 6 of the 10 spots are Yankees and Dodgers. The big markets, they spend the money. They have the star power. They have got the star power. You have Mookie Betts, the Dodgers. He's number 2 overall. You have Aaron Judge, the Yankees, number 3 overall. You have Shohei Ohtani at the Dodgers, number 4 overall. Shohei, I think the only reason he's not number 1 is because the injury, and he's only going to DH this year. Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers, number 5 overall. You then have Juan Soto of the Yankees. Remember, the Yankees traded for Juan Soto. He's number 7 overall. And then Garrett Cole, the Yankees, number 9 overall. The only other players, the 4 other players who are non-Yankees and Dodgers in the top 10, Julio Rodriguez, the center fielder for the Mariners. Yordan Alvarez, the left fielder star for the Astros. You also then have Corey Seager, the MVP of the World Series for the Rangers. He's at number 6. And then the other one is the number 1 overall, the best player in baseball, Ronald Acuna Jr., the right fielder for the Braves. Now, so you can take 2 things from that, right? The stars are on the coasts, L.A. and the Yankees. But also, what's interesting is this list gives teams like the Cubs, like the Red Sox, teams that you feel like should be spending more money, the St. Louis Cardinals, big brands in baseball, a reason to not spend more money because they say, oh, well, how dumb are the Yankees and the And the Dodgers, they're spending all this money. They got all the stars, but who was in the World Series last year? The Rangers and the Diamondbacks. They don't have 5 guys in the top 100, in the top 10. In fact, the Diamondbacks, 5 players in the top 100. You also had the Rangers, your defending World Series champions. They only had 5 players in the top 100. Seager, Simeon, Garcia, Evaldi, and then Nathaniel Lowe, the first baseman. And he barely made it in. And Evaldi's 91. So it's this battle for MLB fans, right? Teams like my team, the Cubs, teams like a lot of your teams, the Cardinals. You want them to go out, be aggressive, free agency, go buy some pitchers, try to keep up with the Yankees and the Dodgers. And yet the owners can argue, well, come on. I mean, building super teams clearly doesn't matter. And I would argue that in general, yeah, you can make the case that in the playoffs, it's about who's hot at the right moment. You have this really, really long season and this extremely short, condensed postseason, right? But the difference is baseball is really a regular season sport. So many of the sports that we love and we watch, football, it's all about postseason. It's all about who's got the rings, right? That's where legacies are made. It's where legacies are made. In the NBA, no one cares that LeBron James is all-time points scored in the regular season. See, George got 6, LeBron doesn't. That's what it's about, right? It's the ring debate. It's so much about the postseason. And the NBA postseason is this, you let now 10 teams in from each side, and it's this play-in, and then it's the reg games, and it's 7-game series. These slogs and battles and slogs, and you're playing a ton of games, and it feels like it takes forever. Same with hockey. I mean, it's these long, long postseasons. Baseball's a regular season sport. And for you to love and to care about your team, you want the stars. You're paying a bunch to go to the ballpark. You're paying a bunch for parking. You're trying to get me to watch a Tuesday afternoon baseball game, Cubs Mariners. Well, I want the stars. I want to see the star power. And so that's to me what this the great debate in baseball right now is the teams that don't spend money versus the teams that do spend money in a non-salary cap league. And it goes to show you the stars are on the coast. The stars are in New York and the stars are in LA. That's where the stars are at. Now, does that mean they're going to win the World Series? No. But what it does mean is they're going to be relevant, talked about all season long because they have the star power. They have the star power. And their fan bases have real hope going into this year. Let me touch on the St. Louis Cardinals, and then I'll touch on my Chicago Cubs. Cardinals, 4 players in the top 100. They had 2 in the top 10 last year. Arenado and Goldschmidt were top 10 players last year. And remember, I said at this time, you got to show up. You got to perform. You have 2 top 10 players. And what happened last year? I mean, it was a disaster. Absolute disaster for the St. Louis Cardinals last year. Well, this year, the Cardinals, 4 in the top 100. Arenado's 33. Goldschmidt is 36. Sonny Gray, he had a great year last year. He's 49th. And then Wilson Contreras squeaks in at number 82 on the list. If you're the Cardinals, you've got to just be really, really hopeful that the pitching holds up. Gray has a great year, and that Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Contreras play like all-stars. If Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Contreras hit home runs and RBIs like all-stars, that's what you got to be counting on this year if you're a Cardinals fan. Got to be counting on it. And then you got to hope that, hey, along the way, the Brewers, the Cubs get caught in the slog of it. I mean, the Pirates and the Reds shouldn't be too much of a competition. The NL Central is kind of wide open. And then you hope for a magical run, right? At this point, you just hope that you can put together a magical run like the Diamondbacks did last year. The Cubs, meanwhile, 3 in the top 100. Justin Steele, he had a breakout year, great all-ace pitcher. Him and Hendricks got to carry the staff this year for the Cubs. Dansby Swanson, the shortstop, 67th on the list. And then Sia Suzuki makes his first appearance on the list. He had a nice second half of the season, 84th on the list. What's frustrating to me as a Cubs fan is Cody Bellinger, who should be a Chicago Cub right now. He'd be your highest player on the list. He's 51st on the top 100. He's not even signed by anyone. So I'm very hopeful still the Cubs can find a way to get Cody Bellinger in camp. This is what the MLB Network says about the St. Louis Cardinals and the team-by-team breakdown. So they say Goldschmidt was the 2022 NL MVP while Arenado finished third in MVP voting. Both regressed significantly in a rough year for St. Louis. But for potential pair future Hall of Famers, you can't count out big years in 2024. They'll hope Contreras can continue to prove he's among the game's best catchers after a strong offensive performance. And the newly acquired Gray will be a boom for the starting rotation, whose 4.83 ERA ranked 24th in baseball last year. Yeah, I mean, that's it. You hope that Gray makes everyone else better. You can get that ERA into the threes, low threes, and then you've just got to cross your fingers and knock on wood that Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Wilson Contreras all have massive offensive years. Now, what does the MLB Network say about my Go Cubs Go? Well, Steele makes his debut at the top 100 list thanks to an all-star season, which he finished fifth in the NL Cy Young Award voting. Swanson remained stellar defensively, winning his second straight Gold Glove at shortstop. But his bat was quieter after last season. He enjoyed a career year in 2023. Suzuki also will join the list of the going opposite direction offensively. His OPS shot up 72 points over his rookie season. So, yeah, Cubs got to hope for a third-year growth from Seiya Suzuki, that Swanson can get back to what he was offensively in 2022 while still being a Gold Glover. And then Steele, Hendricks, and that rotation stays healthy. And in my opinion, Happ has to have a bounce-back year, and you got to just go sign Bellinger. Sign Bellinger. Listen, I'm excited for the baseball season. I really do think there's, when you look at it, the Braves, 9 players in the top 100, they are loaded. You have then the Astros with 7, the Dodgers with 7. Those have to be 3 of your top 5 favorites. I think the Phillies, underrated season, bounce back year. They have 5 players in the top 100: Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Zach Wheeler, the starting pitcher, had a really good year last year. The catcher, Real Muto, and then obviously Schwarber. If the Phillies can stay healthy with Turner, Harper, and Schwarber, and Real Muto, and they can produce offensively, they're kind of my dark horse. In the if you're looking for a long shot to win it all this year, I like the Phillies early. When we come back, we'll talk a little college basketball, men's and women's. As you're listening on the Mark, News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app.
Happy kids heal faster. That's why Starlight Children's Foundation is dedicated to improving the mental well-being of sick kids by providing comfort and normalcy to those who need it most. Learn how at starlight.org.
Here's your weatherology forecast from the News Talk 1070 KHMO Weather Center. Ample sunshine expected today with a high of 47. Northwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, lows around 38. High of 70 tomorrow. Currently, it's 32 degrees.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by the great people over at Kunis Honda Hyundai. They're not only your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area for new vehicles, 3,000 used vehicles to choose from as well. Stop by Kunis Honda Hyundai. Ask them about that no-fear lifetime powertrain warranty on new and used vehicles. And just say, hey, Mark sent me. Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. As always, follow me on all social media at Mark Hespen, MarkHespen, episode 225 of On the Mark here. Starting to land the plane of the show. That's what we're talking about. The next couple of minutes, I want to dive into a little bit of college basketball. So this is a great time of the year to get into college basketball. It's a great time of the year because we're about 2 weeks away from March, from the conference championship weeks. And so that means we're about 3.5 weeks away from March Madness kicking off, which means if you haven't been watching since October, like me, you can really now start to figure out who's hot, who's already going to be in the tournament. You know, teams like UConn are going to be in, Houston, these top teams. So start watching for 3 key things, okay? if you're going to turn on a college basketball game today, and it's a team that maybe you root for, you kind of like, or a team that you think, all right, I want to start, getting some information and filling out my bracket. These are the three things that I look for in this next 2 week stretch. Number one, road wins. Can a team win on the road? Home court advantage in college basketball is such a real thing. It's not in the NBA. It's just not. In college basketball, these atmospheres are electric, especially when it's a rival and they are on the road in ranked games. Houston, a very good Houston team. They're the number 2 ranked team in the country. They're on the road against in-state rival number 11 Baylor today. This is a great, great game to test the mettle of Houston. If you like Houston, they're a great defensive team. This is a great game to watch. 11 o'clock starts here today on CBS. So you watch for teams like, can they win on the road? Keep an eye out for that. Can you win on the road in a hostile environment against other good teams? If they can do that, that's a good sign. That could be a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 team in March Madness. Number one. Number two, a thing to look out for is a team like, Baylor, for example, if you're watching Baylor. Or better yet, let's go to Arizona, because Arizona, number 4 team of the country, plays later today against Washington. They're at home. All right, so you can't watch for them to be on the road today, but Arizona has something that I love. They have an elite guard. They have a guard who can score. Caleb Love, 19 points a game. In March Madness, in the tournament, in order for a team to go far, they have to have a guard who can just get a bucket. They have to have a guy who you can just say, you know what? When Fit hits the Shan and they're down by 4 with a couple minutes left after being up by 6 or 7, and now a lower seed is kind of coming back at them and all the momentum shifting that way. Do they have a dude who just says, give me the ball, clear some space, I'm going to go attack the rim. I'm going to go pull up from my spot. Caleb Love is that kind of guy for Arizona. So you watch a team like that. Arizona also uniquely, a number 4 team in the country, built well inside, outside, big forward. But I'll go to Illinois for that third example. So the third example, team, Iowa plays at Illinois today. Illinois is number 12th in the country. They have that guard, right? Shannon Jr., 22 points a game. He's a walking bucket. But what does Illinois also have? The third thing I look for during this kind of last 2-week period leading into March Madness for which teams do you think are going to go far or not? Sweet 16/Elite 8 Final 4 teams. They not only can win on the road, they have an elite guard, but they also have depth at the big man position. They don't have to have a 7-footer, but they have to have 3 or 4 guys that if they get in foul trouble, it's okay because they have real depth at the forward position, and that's Illinois. You have Domisk and Hawkins, plenty of depth at the forward position to where guys can get a little bit of foul trouble, and now all of a sudden, if you're a team that has one big guy, and then he gets in foul trouble early, and now the next guy comes in, you go from a 7-foot guy to a 6'7" guy. That's bad. That's bad news during March Madness because you really, really need people in the paint playing big who can eat up some fouls. So I think 3 big games to watch today. Houston at Baylor, number 2 at number 11. Can Baylor hold court at home? They're 8-5 in the Big 12. Can they get a big win against the number 2 team in the country? Can Houston score? They're a great defensive team, but do they have the guard play to just score and get a bucket? That's a great thing to look out for. Can they win on the road? Keep an eye out for those. Arizona at home against a good Washington team. Ballo, the 7-foot center, 13 points a game. How do they play in and out ball with Caleb Love? Watch out for Arizona. They're a real team heading into the tournament. And then Illinois against a rival in Iowa at home. Shannon Jr., Domisk, Biggs, the Hawkins. Can they find a way to bounce back after giving up a really ugly loss to Penn State earlier in the week? I will also say, UConn, I know they lost at Creighton. Creighton's a very good team. Creighton is an Elite Eight team. They have guards and bigs. They're a great starting five. They play team basketball. They have Kalkbrenner and real veteran guys who've been in these spots before. So can they bounce back? I think they have the best starting five in the country, UConn. They have the guards, Newton and Spencer, Karabun, Klingon. They have the bigs. The one thing I worry about with UConn is they don't have one guy who's like a 20-point-a-game guy. But they are a great team and a great coach with Hurley. So a lot of great basketball to watch today. Sunday in the college basketball, you get Caitlin Clark in Iowa. Can they bounce back as they play Illinois? That ugly loss against Indiana earlier in the week. And then tomorrow, college basketball world, Creighton at St. John's. How do they handle after a big win against number one UConn? And then Purdue at Michigan with the big man, Zach Edey. Always fun to watch. I don't buy Purdue. I don't think Purdue's a Final Four team. I'll just put that out there now. You listen on the Mark, News Talk 1070 KHMO, the KHMO app. Wrapping up the show next.
1070 KHMO.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO, the KHMO app. Brought to you by Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the Tri-State area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. If you are in the market for a new vehicle, whether it's a pre-owned vehicle or brand new, you can't do better than Cunis Honda Hyundai. I know they are Honda and Hyundai, but if you're looking for a brand new Chevy, brand new Ford, brand new Ram, brand new Jeep, I'm telling you, go into Cunis Honda Hyundai and say, hey, I want to buy a brand new 2024 Jeep, and just let it happen. You're going to be shocked. You're going to be surprised. The network of dealers are what you're buying into with the Cunis family. They are incredible. 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. Tell them Mark sent you. Listen, big win for the Milwaukee Bucks last night. The Doc Rivers era is off to a little bit of a rough start, but coming back from the All-Star break to get a win on the road against the Timberwolves, is this the start of the Bucks really locking in? Pat Bev, a huge add to this Bucks team heading into the final stretch of the season. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a top 3 seed in the East. Can Giannis and Dame and Pat Bev now get that defense figured on out? Nice win for them against the number 1 overall seed in the West, the Timberwolves, on the road last night. I will say, bad news for the Bulls. Patrick Williams out, foot surgery. The Bulls are beat up. They're down to Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan, who are leading the league in minutes right now. They're falling to the 9th seed. It's just ugly for the Bulls. They'll make the play-in tournament. They're going to be one of those 7, 8, 9, 10. But, yeah, don't expect anything else from them. It's just ugly. What another wasted season for the Chicago Bulls. The only thing you say this year, the great thing you found out about is Kobe White's your starting point guard in the future. He's a baller. And he's, if you can build around him the way the Knicks have built around Jalen Brunson, then that's something. That's something. Speaking of Jalen Brunson, they have a chance, the Knicks, hosting the Celtics game. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Celtics are the best team in basketball record-wise. Still don't buy into them 100%. When healthy, though, that starting 5 is fantastic. Sunday, Lakers-Suns. Big game. Lakers just won against Wembanyama and the Spurs last night. So they get a day of rest. They're at the Suns for the primetime game on ABC. That'll be TV 2 for me as I'm watching NASCAR in Atlanta. Go Brad Keselowski. He got robbed the Daytona 500. Robbed. Keselowski had the car to win, and they got wrecked late by Bowman, the eventual winner. And so I look for Keselowski to have a bounce back in hot Atlanta. And then in the evening, Nuggets, Warriors. Warriors, they found a way. They've clawed above 500. They just signed Steve Kerr to a 2-year extension. That is a smart move. As long as he wants to be there, they should keep him there. They've moved Clay to the bench. That's a smart move. So the Warriors starting to put it together here now late. Great test for them at home against a very good Nuggets team, who the Nuggets feel very much kind of like the Bucks, where they're just like, just get us to the playoffs. Just get us to the playoffs. We're going to let our bigs shine. Can we be healthy for a playoff run? And so you got to keep your eye out for that. A lot of great stuff to watch this weekend. Again, if you want to bet college basketball with me this weekend, I already got a future on NASCAR this weekend. You tell me which driver you're rooting for in Atlanta this weekend. I'd love to see your picks. Follow me on Twitter/X at Mark Hespen, MarkHespen. I'll be tweeting out my college basketball bets throughout the day as we go through it. 11 a.m. hour, I got a bet. I got a bet for the 1 p.m. hour here Central Time. Got a bet for the 3 and the 5 hours as well. Just sprinkle a little bit of money, nothing intense, but just, again, keeps you interested, keep you involved with the college basketball scene. And then Sunday, I'm all in on NASCAR, Brad Keselowski, Atlanta, Hot Atlanta. Can't wait to watch it. Enjoy this weekend. Enjoy watching sports and life post-football. For all things, follow me on social media and YouTube at Mark Hespen. We'll see you next week for another episode of On the Mark here, live and local on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app.